Welcome back, everybody. Flow My Tears, The Policeman Said by Philip K. Dick. This one I read just the other day, actually. I finished. I was out with a friend of mine, Katie, and I was kind of showing her some science fiction books that I liked at a store, and happened to see this one. There was a couple copies of this Masterworks, and so we both agreed to get it. We both read it, and it was her first time kind of experiencing something like this. So it was fun to hear her thoughts. But I had experienced PKD before, reading Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep and A Maze of Death. I think those are the only two I've read. I think this is the third one, unless I'm just like totally blanking. But yes, I believe this is the third Philip K. Dick book I've read. And I wasn't really planning on reading it. Had others on my shelf that I was kind of ready to rock and roll with, and this one just kind of fell into my lap by chance, and I'm really glad I read it. I'd seen a couple of comments about this one specifically, but it was a few down my list as far as which ones by him I was going to get to soonest, and I'm happy to say that this one was a good change of pace for Philip K. Dick, at least in my experience. Um, as many of you know, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep is his most well-known work. Inspired the movie Blade Runner, and had a lot more. What's the word I'm looking for? This book was relatively tame, but it was still as trippy as all get out, as most Philip K. Dick books are. But it did not have the serrated edge of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep or A Maze of Death, which was particularly edgy. This one had a more, not somber tone, a lighter tone, if you will, where we follow a man named Jason Taverner, who is he's a singer, very famous singer who hosts like a late night show, um, watched by 30 million people. It makes a point to say. So he's a very famous person. And it's kind of set in the near future, so to speak. There's flying cars called Quibbles. Uh, you know, we're in a pseudo modern environment, but it's a little bit futuristic. And Jason he does his show, and he has this girlfriend, this longtime girlfriend who he's not like married to, but you know, it's like the way stars date each other, named Heather. They get in his car and they drive and they're flying to somewhere, and he gets a message from one of his ex-girlfriends who wants him to come over now, and he makes this pit stop at this place, and she hands him a weird object which is like a creature, and it inserts itself in him, but he's able to immobilize it, and but it's already gotten some feeding tubes inside of him, so he needs to go have an operation. When he wakes up from this operation, nothing is the same. His whole entire life changes completely. That is the very, very, very light spoiler. That happens in the first like chapter or two, so I'm not spoiling anything for you. Gives you the premise that he no longer is the famous Jason Taverner that everybody knows, and this leads him to kind of, over the next couple of days, really try to go on a journey of trying to discover, how do I kind of get back to my old life and what happened to me, because he's still aware of himself, like his perception of himself, but he meets people and says and carries himself with this famous person energy of, I'm Jason Taverner, and they're like, who? He's like, don't you know me? And they're like, no. And he has no way of proving who he is because nobody even knows his shows or his records. And so he goes on this series of kind of meandering, uh, just pathways where he meets some different people, and PKD just takes you for this ride of you really don't know who to trust in this book. What is reliable? Is Jason reliable, or is he having some kind of manic episode? Uh, is there some kind of switch that's been flipped, or some, he does a great job of keeping you in the dark, but giving you just enough of the breadcrumbs to kind of keep you engaged and aware of the plot and where it's headed. But he's just a master at providing you with the simplest little bits of information, as I said, the little breadcrumbs, while not his subtle hints aren't enough for you to gather what you think is going to happen next, because then he'll just out of left field, here comes something big, hard right turn into a different direction. Like, it's not what you're expecting. And I love that about his writing, because I was perplexed by some of it, um, a lot of it, and it is just so much fun to chew on, the things that he's bringing up, which thematically, not giving away anything else, not spoilers. I think this book deals with perception, individual perception, and are we all living in the same shared reality? Is reality this one big giant ball floating in space that we're on? And is that reality? Or do our minds, he's exploring, do our minds, I guess, can they create a different reality through use of technology or drugs or magic or whatever? They're like, trying to explore that idea of shared reality and perception. And he's so incredibly insightful in the way that he explores it, because it's a gratifying story, and it's also a deeply thought-provoking experiment, an exploration of an idea. And so here's your warning for spoilers. I don't know how much of the rest of the story specifically I'm going to get into, but I don't want to spoil anything for those of you that don't want any of the major plot elements at the end spoiled for you. So there's your warning. Um, I think that the fact that when he starts meeting characters like Kathy, and when he gets taken into the police station for the first time to meet Felix, is it Buckman? I want to say Buckman. Tell me right. Yep, Buckman. Um, when he starts interacting with these characters, and then at the end he meets, and then near the end he meets Buckman's sister, Alice, who then dies mysteriously and is just a skeleton on the floor. I was when Kathy's interaction was interesting and unique and very bizarre. When she screams in the restaurant, I was like, what is he doing here? This is weird stuff, even for Philip K. Dick. Then the stuff with Buckman was actually really interesting when he kind of interrogates him. It gave me shades of Blade Runner, where Buckman was kind of posing as a 7, so to speak, since Jason Taverner is a 6. And he was playing some mind games with him, because he's not a 7. He's not an advanced species or an advanced human race of, you know, he is just a person, but he's posing as a 7 to get into Jason's head during the interrogation. I thought that was a cool scene. Again, dealing with perception. Uh, but the scenes with Alex at the end that kind of spur on the end and pick up the plot a little bit, really was bizarre. They take that little drug like mescaline or something like that. She gives him just a little bit, and he's used to that drug. But that drug, at least the way I understood it, was what caused him to almost get out of this side reality that he had been in. I couldn't figure out, and I'm trying. I still, maybe I just missed something or whatever. But the records being blank was such a bizarre thing to me. If you know, and if you understand what I'm talking about, when he meets Alice, and they're in her quibble, her car, her flying car, and he reaches in the back seat, I think, and she pulls out 2 of his records. No, he finds them at her house. Where does he find the records at? I'm kind of losing myself in the plot. Because that's what he does very well. And I don't want to lose my train of thought in this video because I think what I've said so far expresses my thoughts very well. Um, but I want you to understand, if you have or haven't read it at this point, you've probably read it if you're watching the spoiler section, and if you haven't, you're okay with it being spoiled. But this book is, it doesn't arrive at a very concrete conclusion, at least from my reading of it. I think that the idea of the drug, or whatever he was given prior to his awakening in the hotel room and the whole reality being changed, and then the drug from Alice kind of like reacting differently to it, it it spoke more to me about the backstory of Philip K. Dick's um, dealings with drugs and some of the stuff that he was on. And I could be completely wrong. This book was published in. Give me a publishing date, please. This is okay. Come on now. This makes for some really riveting. Um, I'm sure you're really loving that I'm just looking through my book right now. I cannot find the publication date on this copy. 74. Wow, it's right in front of me. So yeah, this was sort of right during his. The 74 would have been before A Scanner Darkly, right before Confessions of a Crap Artist, right after A Maze of Death. So yes, this lines up with my reading of Maze of Death, which felt very drug fueled. Um, and I just think he was experimenting with what that does to your perception of reality, what it does to other people's perceptions of reality. And I want to read this book again at some point because I maybe I'll get something else from a second reading of it, but help me understand if I'm what I'm missing from it, because I think that it left me a little bit not wanting, but curious as to what he was trying to actually say about perception. Did he have a point? Did he have a, kind of a stamp at the end that was supposed to give me some kind of resolution, or was it intentionally vague how Jason got into this mess and got out, so to speak? Because it just did muddle it muddled my brain at the end. It really gave me kind of it threw me for a loop. But I think a lot of Philip K. Dick's works do that to people, and so I don't think I'm alone in that. But I'm glad I read this. I think it's a solid 8 out of 10, and I hate that I'm giving a lot of my books 7, 8, 9s, because it doesn't feel like I'm being as critical on them. But when you read a guy like Philip K. Dick, this is a masterworks for a reason. I feel that I'm going to have a hard time finding works that I don't like from him. So bear with me as I try to not harness, kind of figure out how I'm going to work more on my grading scale of books. And that's not exactly why I'm doing these videos, is to give them some end all be all grade. But I wanted to give you at least some kind of idea about how much I enjoyed it. So 8 out of 10. It's a great read. It's a short read too. This was just over 200 pages, so I flew through this thing in 2 sittings. And my friend Katie, who, like I said, also read this book, said that she enjoyed it, but she also was a little bit puzzled at the end. Um, I don't know if she realized what she was getting herself into, because I had read a couple of Philip K. Dick books, but if you're a first time reader of him, I don't know if this is the one to start with, but it's not the first one to start with, if that makes any sense. I think it's a worthwhile Philip K. Dick book to read, and it's one of the more thought provoking and fun books I've read that didn't feel like it was super heavy on my conscience in the recent months that I've been reading. So I'm flying through a lot of books lately. I got some reviews that'll be coming up on the channel soon that are continuing from my not best of, my 25 book challenge. If any of you are following along with that, some real bangers to come. Sirens of Titan, Lord of Light, Foundation, Voyage to Arcturus. There's some really cool ones that I'm excited to review coming up soon. But in the meantime, I've been, like I said, flying through lots of books. So be on the lookout. Some of mine will just pop up out of nowhere as I continue to dig into a lot more vintage science fiction. So I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope it gave you a little bit more context to this book. Um, I just like joining in on the conversations with some of these works. So yeah, with that, let me know your thoughts on it down below. Appreciate you as always for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks a lot.